The other submarine too has suffered catastrophic damage in the forward area, with the bow section being completely torn away. What is interesting is this wreck is a lot more corroded than the other one. The submarine itself has broken down a lot more, and there's enough evidence on site for us to conclude that it is a late war Type 7 U-boat.
The divers are reaching these submarines just in time. In a mere handful of years, the features that allow them to identify individual boats will vanish, leaving only the anonymous solid metal of the pressure hull. With the 3 mystery submarines found within a few miles of each other, did they meet the same grisly end? They all share similar catastrophic damage. One may lie next to a ship, but that is more than likely just a complete coincidence. In order to discount ramming entirely, Innes needs to identify the individual submarines. By adding the evidence from the dives to his and Axel's search of British and German archives, they are on the brink of naming each of the 3 mystery U-boats.
There were several boats operating in this area, but as far as we know, none of these boats was recorded as being lost in the Cornish area. But now, having 3 wrecks off the coast of Cornwall, there is certainly reason to doubt these immediate post-war decisions.
From the archive, they now have 3 firm candidates. Only by diving and recording more footage for analysis can they determine which one is which.
And so through diving and through a study of the forensics and the material that lies on each site, we try to identify each submarine. It's fortunate for us that there were very specific design differences between all 3, and by looking for specific features on all 3 sites, we were able to satisfy ourselves that we'd been able to tell them apart. Here's the ring float schnorkel on the foredeck. There's the cutaway, and actually right there is the round schnorkel head. And I kind of knew when I saw that I was looking at something important, because it's the only time I've ever seen one on a war loss. I mean, I've seen some Operation Deadline, but I've never seen one on a submarine that's been lost in action before. So I knew it was important. And
yeah, it's a key element in identifying this boat as 325, because it is the only one of these 3 boats which carried this kind of snorkel head.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rare feature.
Well, from the details we have collected on the wrecks, comparing it with the details we have collected on the equipment of the wartime boats, we are pretty sure that there is 100% certainty in allocating individual boats to individual wrecks.
Now they can positively identify all 3 U-boats for the first time. U-400, last heard of in December 1944. U-1021, last heard of in March 1945. And U-325, last heard of in April 1945. Now a new, deeper mystery beckons. Official records list all these submarines as sunk elsewhere. It is time to discover the secret that lies behind their brutal destruction. Off the coast of Cornwall, 3 unidentified U-boats are now named by submarine experts Innes McCartney and Axel Niesler. U-400 disappears in December 1944. U-1021 is lost in March 1945. And U-325 becomes a victim in the very last week of the war. British records list these submarines as sunk elsewhere. The mystery deepens. Why are they here? In the early days of World War II, few submarines troubled the Cornish coast or the Bristol Channel. They stalked their prey far out in the Atlantic. In 1944, this changes. No one knows better than the commander of U-413, Knight's Cross holder, Gustav Poole.
Our old tactic was to gather several U-boats on the surface. They would try to sail in front of a convoy, then dive for the attack. Heavy air cover made that no longer possible. Also, the British had superior communications. On top of that, they had cracked our codes. It became open season for them to hunt us down. So I wasn't at all surprised to be told no more missions in the North Atlantic. Instead, attack along the coast. My orders were to intercept the coastal convoys taking war material to the Channel ports. An enemy target has to be worth the trouble. There's no point dying for the sake of a tramp steamer with a couple of crew and a few tons of freight. That's stupid. Because the U-boat, as long as it exists, represents a greater threat than just managing to sink a small ship of a few hundred tons.
When the right target presented itself, Poole was prepared to take a gamble. 180 feet down is the result. This is all that remains of a destroyer, HMS Warwick. In February 1944, she set out to track down a U-boat. On board was navigation officer David Harris.
We were advised that it was believed a submarine was operating off Land's End, and we were to sail immediately in company with HMS Scimitar to search for her.